Welcome to Mindful Moments. Nourish your mind on the go. This audio uses AI narration to present our original book analysis.
Oh, cool.
Today, we're going to be diving deep into Founding Brothers, The Revolutionary Generation by Joseph J. Ellis.
Okay.
And it's this really fascinating look at all the dynamics between the men who shaped the early United States.
Yeah, it's easy to think about the American Revolution as this straight shot to victory.
Right.
But Ellis really emphasizes how uncertain it all was.
Oh, yeah.
For the people actually living through it. He even calls it this paradox of inevitability.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it because, we often just kind of assume of course they were going to win and it was all going to work out.
Right.
But you forget that these were actual people making decisions with enormous consequences and no guarantee of success.
Exactly. And just to emphasize that point, Ellis tells the story about Benjamin Rush overhearing a conversation between Benjamin Harrison and Elbridge Gerry on July 4th, 1776, right after they signed the Declaration of Independence.
So literally right after.
Yeah, they're just kind of coming down from that high.
Yeah.
And Harrison jokes to Gerry, "I shall have a great advantage over you, Mr. Gerry, when we are all hung for what we are now doing. From the size and weight of my body, I shall die in a few minutes, but from the lightness of your body, you will dance in the air an hour or two before you are dead."
Oh my gosh.
Dark humor, right?
It's like gallows humor.
Yeah.
But it really puts you there.
Yeah, in the moment.
You really understand the weight
Absolutely.
of what they were doing.
Yeah.
And speaking of high stakes and risk.
Yeah.
One of the most dramatic things that Ellis explores is the duel between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr.
Oh, yeah. What's interesting about that duel is how much it reflects the anxieties of the time. I mean, these men were obsessed with honor and reputation.
Right.
And dueling was seen as a way to settle disputes, but also just to kind of maintain your social standing.
So it was almost like a performance in a way.
Yeah. It was a way to prove your courage and commitment to your ideals.
Wow. And of course, both Hamilton and Burr were incredibly ambitious.
Oh, yeah.
And driven. I mean, their rivalry went way beyond just disagreeing on policy.
Absolutely. They clashed over personalities, ideologies, and ultimately their visions for the future of the nation.
So can you talk a little bit more about their different visions? What did they each want for the country?
Sure. Well, think about Hamilton's financial plan.
Okay.
It was really kind of brilliant for its time.
Yep.
He proposed assuming state debts, creating a national bank, and establishing a system of tariffs. This was all designed to strengthen the federal government and promote economic growth.
Right.
But it also generated tons of controversy.
Yeah, I can imagine that. That's a lot of change all at once.
A lot of power shifting.
So it was shifting power away from the states.
Exactly. Southern Republicans like Jefferson and Madison worried that a strong central government would trample on states' rights. Mm-hmm. They also feared that this national debt would mostly benefit wealthy speculators in the North.
Okay, so even though this nation was brand new, there were already these really deep divisions emerging.
Oh, absolutely. And that tension is perfectly captured in this dinner that Jefferson hosted. He brought Hamilton and Madison together to try and broker some kind of compromise.
So this was all about the assumption of state debts, right?
Yes. Hamilton really wanted the federal government to assume responsibility for all those state debts that had been incurred during the Revolutionary War.
Okay.
His argument was that it would help establish national credit and create a unified financial system. But Madison and other Southerners, they were opposed.
All right.
They argued that many Southern states had already paid off their debts.
Right.
And they didn't want to be stuck with the debts of other states.
Yeah, that makes sense. It sounds like a very classic political standoff. How in the world did they ever reach a compromise?
Well, it was a pretty brilliant piece of political maneuvering. Basically, Hamilton agreed to support moving the nation's capital to the Potomac River.
Okay.
Which would obviously appease Southern interests.
Right.
And in return for that, Madison agreed to support the Assumption Plan.
So both sides kind of got a little something that they wanted and the nation could move forward.
Yeah.
I think that really highlights just how important compromise is.
Yeah.
Especially in a fledgling democracy.
Yeah.
You have to be able to give a little to get a little to keep things running smoothly.
For sure.
It's interesting how this compromise set the stage for growth. But Ellis doesn't shy away from the tougher stuff.
Right.
Slavery was a huge issue, obviously.
Yeah.
It cast a shadow over all those ideals of liberty and equality.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it reminds us that Progress isn't always a straight line.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And this is so clear in those congressional debates over the Quaker petitions against slavery.
Oh, those were fascinating.
Oh.
You had people arguing for immediate abolition.
Right.
Others wanted gradual emancipation.
Okay.
And then others who just flat out defended it.
Wow.
Really a microcosm of this national struggle.
Yeah, and it's hard to reconcile those actions with figures like Jefferson.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he wrote, all men are created equal,
Right.
but he owned slaves.
He's a complex figure for sure.
Yeah.
He definitely grappled with the morality of it all.
I think so.
Oh, yeah. He even drafted a passage condemning slavery for the Declaration of Independence.
Really?
But it got removed
Oh, wow.
to appease the Southern delegates.
It's like he knew it was wrong, but just couldn't quite get there.
Almost like he couldn't reconcile those ideals with the reality at this time.
He even said, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, that his justice cannot sleep forever.
Powerful words.
They really are.
Yeah, he understood the morality,
Right.
but he was still part of that system.
And it wasn't just him, right?
No, a lot of the founding fathers were conflicted on this.
It's hard to think of them as this unified group then.
Yeah, they had really different ideas about the nation's future.
And then there's Benjamin Franklin.
Oh, yeah.
In his later years, he became a big advocate for abolition.
That's right.
And his final public act was really something.
You're talking about the satirical petition to Congress,
Yeah.
where he compares the pro-slavery arguments to those used by a slave trader in Algiers.
Right.
Brilliant.
It is. Like he used satire
Yeah.
to point out the hypocrisy.
Exactly. Here's this man who built the nation.
Yeah.
And at the end, he's calling out its biggest flaw.
So even with all the compromises, there were those who pushed for a better society.
Absolutely.
And speaking of influential figures, what about George Washington?
Washington.
Ellis dedicates a whole chapter to his farewell address.
Yeah.
You know, analyzing his decision to retire.
It's amazing how aware he was of the contradictions of his role.
Really?
He was like a Republican king,
I like that.
powerful figurehead, but in a system designed to limit that power.
It's wild how he managed all that.
He was respected,
Right?
even revered.
But he got criticized too.
He did, and it got to him.
No way, really?
Ellis shows that despite that image, Washington was human.
Right.
He doubted, he worried.
Even Washington?
Yeah, it's a good reminder that even the greats had those moments.
And to retire after 2 terms.
Big statement.
What do you think it meant?
Solidified this idea of a peaceful transfer of power.
Yeah.
Set the example for every president after him.
And his farewell address? It was guidance for this young nation.
Oh, yeah. He talked about unity, warned about political factions and foreign entanglements.
It's crazy how relevant that still is today.
Right.
Like his experience in war, it shaped how he approached foreign policy.
Totally.
Knew the nation needed to focus inward before looking outward.
Smart.
And speaking of relationships, Ellis really digs into Adams and Jefferson.
Oh, that's a good
They
one.
start as colleagues,
Yeah.
fighting for independence,
Yeah.
but then it all kind of falls apart.
What caused that rift? Well, they had different visions of what the republic should be.
Interesting.
Adams, he was a Federalist,
Right.
favored a strong central government.
Oh.
Jefferson, he was all about the Republicans.
Right.
States' rights, individual liberty, that was his thing.
So those differences, they fueled this rivalry in the 1790s.
Yeah, culminated in that bitter election of 1800.
Right, which was a turning point.
Huge. The Republicans rose, the Federalists declined.
And it wrecks their friendship.
Oh, yeah, Adams was really hurt by Jefferson's words during that campaign.
Their letters stopped.
Years of silence.
It's amazing how politics can do that.
Tear people apart.
But then they start writing again.
It's remarkable.
It really is.
They reconcile.
It shows the power of forgiveness
For sure.
and true friendship.
Enduring.
But they weren't just catching up, were they?
No. They grappled with legacy, how they'd be remembered.
It's like they were writing for us.
Yeah, they knew these letters would be read by future generations.
That's a whole other layer to it.
It makes you wonder how much was genuine
Right.
and how much was for show.
That's what I love about history.
Yeah.
We can never truly know.
But we have these letters.
Yeah.
Glimpses into their minds, their growth, their reflections.
It makes Founding Brothers so engaging.
It's not just dates and facts. It's
Yeah.
about people
Real people
with flaws
contradiction.
trying to build something lasting.
Yeah. It really makes you think how these letters from so long ago still feel so relevant.
Yeah, it's like this conversation that's still going on.
Exactly.
And Ellis, he really pushes us to engage in that conversation,
I agree.
to question what we think we know about the past.
To see how it still shapes us.
Totally.
I think what I really appreciate is that he doesn't shy away from the messiness.
Right.
He presents these guys as they were.
Yeah.
Humans with all their flaws.
Real people.
Yeah.
It makes them much more relatable.
Absolutely. This wasn't some group of perfect beings. They had their own goals, their own biases, their own blind spots.
For sure.
But the thing is, they still created something amazing.
They did.
This nation, founded on liberty, equality, and self-governance.
Powerful stuff.
It shows that progress can happen even when there's disagreement.
Mm-hmm.
But it also makes you realize how fragile democracy is.
Oh, yeah.
You need to be active to keep those tough conversations going.
Absolutely. That's why books like this are so important.
I agree.
They challenge us to think critically.
To learn from the past.
The good and the bad.
So if you're looking for a book that's going to make you think and want to learn more about America's beginnings, I highly recommend Founding Brothers.
Definitely check out.
We've got a link in the show notes where you can buy it.
Special discount for our listeners.
Support the show and get a great read.
Exactly.
And while you're at it, subscribe to Mindful Moments for more deep dives just like this one.
We love exploring these ideas with you.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you in the next episode.